life is about to get a whole lot easier because today we are sharing ways to make your day-to-day life more predictable. Studio 5 relationship coach Dr. Matt Townsend is here with us. And this is a pretty large claim.
This is huge.
You're going to take the crazy out of our lives for us.
Well, part of it is we think it's so random and chaotic, but it's really very, very predictable. And the more you kind of notice human behavior and actually track it and watch it over a long enough period of time, it's fairly predictable. That's why news stories that are really weird and unpredictable are so shocking to us, because it's so out of the ordinary. But 99% of our life is very predictable.
You know, it's funny because when you think about those hard relationships, they are, you're right. You want to think they're not predictable. Yeah. You want to think, I can't believe that just happened. But this has probably happened 79 other times in your life.
No, absolutely. And when they come in and see me, because I'm kind of seeing the more conflicted relationships, what I keep seeing even in their most chaotic times is predictable order. It's very predictable what this one's going to say to make this one mad and what this one will say to make this one mad. You can almost see it, and it's a dance. It's the most beautiful dance you've ever seen. But you have to start.
Is it beautiful or just scary as all get out?
It started as scary when you didn't see the order, but once you see the order, then all of a sudden you can start saying, whoa, 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 let's just start noticing a few things, and once you notice it, you can actually stop the fight. You can start doing things better, more effectively. So we've got 4 tools to help you recognize the predictable.
And you said your first one, I love this, is hard relationships teach us the most.
Yeah, they are your greatest teacher. And so here's why it's so important to know that. If you go into a difficult relationship with somebody thinking you're there to learn, won't you approach it differently, thinking that instead of thinking they're there to suck the life out of you? If I go into my marriage and I think my wife's just trying to make my life miserable, that's different than me thinking that this person's trying to teach me something. This isn't, I mean, not even intentionally, but I've got something incredibly important to learn from this person, and I need to go start learning it. So then I make my life about learning from the difficult people instead of just putting up with them or ignoring them or hating them.
So do we create more stress on that note when we assume the worst?
Yeah, always.
When we think my spouse is here to make my life hard.
And that is the most natural thought, is to think they're out to get you instead of thinking there's something I need to do to learn from this. Once I get that I'm supposed to be learning, then it changes everything I do. It changes how I see it, changes how I act about it, changes how I interpret what my wife or my spouse or another person is doing. No one's here to harm you. And I always say that your marriage or your hardest relationships are your best spiritual teacher. You're here to learn your greatest spiritual things through these hardest relationships. So start using it as such.
Use those relationships. Assume the bad behavior is unintentional.
Yeah, this is huge.
We've talked before about how important those assumptions are.
Because you'll immediately inherently make an assumption that they're intentionally trying to hurt you, they're trying to harm you, they want to make your life bad. But I teach, instead, assume that bad behavior is unintended, that they're unaware, and that they're unskilled. Here's why. Humans are inherently good. They just are inherently good. So if somebody actually is hurting you, if they're harming you, and again, if they're physically hurting you, you got to get away, you got to be safe.
Right.
But if you're being emotionally hurt, if you're not understanding why they're doing it, if you just would assume they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to do this differently. They're not aware of how they're impacting you. By just making that little tweak in the interpretation, you can start to actually make this more into, again, a learning mentality, a learning mindset. And the weird thing is I'm less offended, and my body will go into less of a fight or flight. I don't need to fear you. If you're unintentionally slowing me down when I'm trying to get to KSL on time, if you're unintentionally doing that, but I keep thinking you're trying to ruin my life, I'm going to have a completely different experience in life by just assuming most people, 99.9% of the time, it's happening unintentionally. Nobody knows they're irritating you. Nobody is aware of the impact they're fully having, and nobody is skilled enough to do it differently.
It's so interesting because I'm always impressed with those people who can kind of take a moment and when someone says something really offensive in a grocery store, or just those random things that kind of tip you off, can respond so well, like, oh, I'm so sorry, it's all good.
Didn't even know about it. Because if all of a sudden I thought you unintentionally got in front of me in the line, my spirit will be totally different. By the way, you can correct it. You can say, sorry, the line's back there. But that's a different spirit than, what are you doing in my space, and going off on it.
So how can working on our emotional intelligence make a difference?
This is so important because a lot of times we think our emotions are being caused by everyone else. But remember, your emotions are there to warn you to do something, to not miss something. Your emotions are there to make sure you're not missing it. So we want to make sure that you always understand that your emotions are always first about you than anyone else. And a lot of us jump immediately to thinking everyone else is causing my emotional problem. The minute I put all of my energy out there, then I no longer am looking in here. So I might not even act on the emotion. So if I feel fear or nervousness about something, that means I probably ought to start being prepared for this. I ought to start learning how to fix this instead of me getting mad at whoever is making me afraid. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So the minute I put it more inward towards me, then I can start doing something with the emotion. And the cool thing is, once you start acting on the fears, the concerns, the shame, once you start doing something about it, you usually evaporate the fear, the shame, the guilt, the blame.
It's so interesting. So you're not actually ignoring the emotions because you're going to feel it anyway.
Don't ignore them ever. They're important. They're telling you something. But don't ever assume they're about everything else. They're always for you because they're your emotions. This is your body telling you something, so pay attention to your emotions.
So being aware of what's going on the inside. You also say that feeling lucky is as good as being lucky, which is really kind of an interesting
idea. Isn't that weird? A lot of us just wish we were so lucky, but there's people that feel lucky. They just are lucky. Like I usually, on some days when I drive into a parking lot, I feel lucky. Like I know I'm going to get a good parking stall. And if you feel lucky, whether you actually get a good parking stall or not, if I feel like I am, it's going to actually increase the likelihood that I will. So by the way, another way to put this is feeling blessed is just as lucky as being blessed. So if I can actually feel blessed, then I am blessed, whether I was actually blessed or not.
It's interesting because you do hear the stories. You hear stories of people during World War II who are in these excruciating circumstances, and yet they're somehow saying, thank you for everything I've been given.
All feelings are preceded by thinking, right? So if you want to feel something, you got to think it. So you got to think, I'm blessed. And if you start noticing how blessed you are, and if you start noticing everything you have and how bad things could get and noticing how you don't have a lot of those bad things, once you start thinking it or seeing it, you'll start feeling it. Once you start feeling it, honestly, that's all you need. The feeling is awesome, but if you could eventually then be blessed, that's even better. But feeling it is 10 times better than nothing.
You're absolutely right, because you think, oh goodness, you know, there's some people who have so much, some people who have so little, and just the way you feel about it makes the biggest difference.
But we always think we have to have it to be blessed. But I want people to know the feeling is the blessing. The peace in life is the blessing. The blessing may not be wealth and abundance. The very feeling or emotional peace or joy or hope or love, those things are the blessing. Having a husband to feel it with is different. Having a house to live it in is different. Having a lot of money to do something with it is different. The real blessing, I believe, is the feeling.
The thing that is going on inside, not what's going on all around you.
That's right. Because, by the way, that spirit can be there whether the things are there or not. So if the things go away, the feeling can still reside. That's why, to me, it's the truest blessing, the feeling. And feelings matter more than the actual blessing.
It's so interesting. And does it start with just telling yourself, I am blessed? I mean, if you're not naturally that kind of a thinker.
Start noticing it. Just start noticing it. Start counting your blessings. Start saying, and by the way, some would call it lucky. Then if you want to call it lucky, start counting how lucky you are. Find 3 things a day that make you really lucky. Find 3 things a day that make you blessed, that you're grateful for. And the more you start noticing the things you're grateful for, amazingly the feeling is there. And once the feeling's there, it'll change generally what you do. And then that might beget more things that are tangible.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I can tell you one thing we're grateful for. You.
Thanks,
Thank
Emily.
you for your advice.
You're awesome.
Okay, tell us where we can find out more.
Go to MattTownsend.com. We're kind of wrapping up this online anxiety program we have. So go there, go check it out. It's called Anxious and Engaged. A lot of us are anxious, but we're disengaged. So we're going to teach you how, if you have a little anxiety in your life, how to stay engaged in life. It's awesome. Go online. We're giving discounts through the end of the month.
Awesome. Thanks so much,
Matt.
Thanks, Em.